Both he's gone.
Hence the black hat.
He does this before.
It's easy, so good.
Well, especially starting from
It's frustrating. They're like, "Oh, you have- just counting car." Oh, I didn't like that.
I mean, I'm having fun shops where it's
Fire years. Yes, where you buy your station. So, yeah, we're signing. We'll be talking about this. Opening fire chiefs finally forgot to make him. Might sign up. To make great pancakes after. So, yeah, that's fine. It's just. All these. Yeah, you know, go look up, try to be project.
Are you looking for anyone that's specific?
Says that. We got that meets in 6 months. We can just.
Yeah, well, it's delayed
Exactly.
like by 3 months too, you know.
It is.
So-
So it's been.
Thank you.
Do you want us up there or where do you want us?
Seems like we should.
Sorry, I'm not just sitting right here.
I think you two have to go up there. I think I'm the only one that gets to sit down here. Maybe Brittany, but like she's running the Zoom, you know. Or maybe we can.
You can go right ahead. Oh, you're fine. Hey, thanks for doing. Exactly. Talking about it's like you said, it's on dance and that fun stuff here.
Hey, picture.
Yeah, this is my lunch.
We're not, I'm like, one with all act like this, and they're trying to say, I'm like, we need less.
I started at
Just
6.
don't. I'm like, it's just too much.
It was our first year, we went from 6 to 8, 16 to 3. Or no, we have a flood we went to, they wrote the R one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, welcome everyone. Appreciate everyone being here. Welcome to the Tooele Valley Rural Planning Organization meeting on Monday, June 12th at Tooele County Council Chambers. And the time is 1:34. And a special welcome to Councilmember Drew Bay
That's very good.
and
Have fun having it.
And so Councilmember Drew Bay is from the Urda City Council, and Councilmember Von Hatten is with the Lake Point City Council. So special welcome to both of you. And I'll also give a special welcome to Jeff Dupay, and who's with the new UDOT Region 2 planner, and also Becky Stromness, who's a project manager in Region 2, joining us for the first time, I believe. So thank you. And for the sake of everybody who's new, I thought we'd go around and first do introductions in person, and then I'll just, whoever I see the order on the screen, invite people online to introduce themselves after we go around in person. So let's start with you, Brittany.
I am Brittany Lopez, the Assistant County Manager for Tooele County.
I'm Andy Welch, the Tooele County Manager.
Wayne Benyon, Wasatch Front Regional Council.
Debbie Wynn, Tooele City Mayor.
Kip Billings, Wasatch Front Regional Council.
Scott.
Kathleen Von Hatten, Lake Point City Council.
Perfect.
Jared Stewart, Tooele City Economic Development.
Awesome. Thank you. Jay.
Jay Aguilar, Long Range Planning Manager for UDOT.
Terrific. Juan.
Juanless Bradlin, UDOT Project Manager.
Becky.
Yeah, I'm Becky Stromness, a UDOT Project Manager in Region 2.
Chip.
I'm Chip Hill. I'm the Region 2 Traffic Ops Engineer.
Jeff.
Oh.
For some reason, we're not picking up your audio, Jeff. Even though the mute symbol went away, or the muted symbol went away. So,
Oh, is that better?
yes, yes.
Okay, yep, Jeff Dupay, Region 2 Planning Manager.
Terrific. Councilmember Thomas,
Kendall Thomas, Tooele County Council.
Jesse,
Jesse Wilson, Grantsville City Manager.
and James.
Hi, everybody. James Waltz, Grantsville City Public Works Director.
And Paul,
Paul Hansen, Tooele City Engineer.
Rosie,
Hi, everyone. Rosie Hernandez, Wasatch Front Regional Council.
Rochelle,
Rochelle Pester, Tooele County Community Development Director.
terrific. Thank you, everyone. And we'll jump right into the agenda. Any comments or questions on the December 12th meeting minutes? Those were in an email that Rosie sent last Wednesday.
Wayne, I did want to point out that Grantsville City Mayor is on the line as well.
Ah, terrific. Would you introduce yourself, Mayor?
Welcome, everybody. Thank you. I'm listening. Keep talking.
That's Mayor Critchlow with Grantsville. Thank you. Appreciate that, Mayor. Would anyone care to make a motion on the December 12th, 2022 meeting minutes?
So moved.
Thank you, Mayor Nguyen. And a second. Thank you, Scott. Great. All in favor of those minutes being approved, say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Thank you. All right, those will stand approved. Well, we've got a few items on the agenda today, and not on the agenda, but we'll, I think right after Juan gives us a brief update on the Mid-Valley Highway Environmental Assessment, we'll invite Becky to give us a brief update on an upcoming project on State Route 36. Jay, let's turn some time to you to talk to us about the draft statewide long-range transportation plan 2023 to 2050.
Are you going to start your projection of the document, or should I?
If you want to, that'd be great. If you want to just share your screen.
It says it's disabled
Oh,
for me. You have to allow me.
oh, never mind. Brittany is going to make that happen here.
Okay.
Okay. Now is it allowing you or no?
Yes, it is allowing me. There we go.
Terrific.
Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, let's see if I can.
You can just click on slideshow. Oh, there you go.
Okay, so we're coming up to the end of our, and I'll make this relatively quick and hopefully you have time for questions, but we're coming up to the end of our long range plan process. This long range plan all long range plans cover 27 or so years to 30 years out. They're updated every 4 years. We usually take a slight little breather, 6 months to a year in between. It covers all modes of travel. Oops, that was fast. And this just kind of shows you the life cycle of a typical project and the area that it covers. It's the rural areas, not the Metropolitan Planning Organization jurisdictions. And so then it goes through prioritization, the STIP, implementation, and then on to construction. So here's the schedule that we followed over the last 3 years. And we're coming into the final round, which is right there. That orange symbol refers to a point where, an inflection point where we're taking feedback. And this is the end of the project. You'll be able to see the final or the draft final document and make comments on that document. It will be open the 23rd of June through the 25th of July. So for 30 plus 2 days because of the holiday. And as with all other things that UDOT is doing these days, it's cast against this framework, the quality of life framework, better mobility, good health, connected communities, and strong economy. So we spent a lot of time filtering all projects to determine how they're affected and how they can be made better through the quality of life framework. Currently, these are the rural totals for each mode for each 10-year phase. So the phase 1, 2, 3 typically are approximately 10 years. There you have the breakdown. And please notice the little asterisk. Everybody always wonders what their local match is going to be, but an essential part of the project cost. And then this graphic kind of symbolizes all the inputs that go into the rural project list. Public input, plus in the funnel, transportation and data models are run to evaluate the projects with the input from the local governments and leaders and the public. And then those are fiscally constrained based on funding projections as part of the unified plan process. And the unified plan is the process that brings together the rural long range plan at UDOT plus the Metropolitan Planning Organization plans, the RTPs. And we also include the RPO planning as well in there. This is a sample of what the mapping tool looks like. Starting on the 23rd, you'll be able to go into a version of this, move around, select areas throughout Tooele, and you can filter it by phase. You can filter it by mode type, so transit, active transportation, or roadway. And so it's a pretty capable tool that hopefully you'll find useful. And then there will also be just like the thing that some of you are familiar with, the list that shows all of the phases and all of the modes is also going to be part of that document. So I shared this with you, but there will be links. It'll be embedded in the website. You'll be able to go through the document and then leave comments through links in the document as well. But this link at the bottom there has been an ongoing active link throughout the process that you can also leave any comments. And there's Jeff and my contact information. So Jeff's your man from now on as projects continue to be developed and long-range planning happens in your region, as well as our friends at Wasatch Front. So thanks for this time. If you have any questions, I can take those.
So Jay, just really quick, that's an old phone number.
Uh-oh.
So I will type in my my number in the chat.
Perfect. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, Jay. That's informative. Any questions or comments for Jay? All right, so yeah, please remember that date of June 23rd and the following 30 days. If you would like to make comments on the draft statewide long-range plan, which includes additional through lanes and new construction projects, as well as transit and active transportation projects. From the state's perspective on state highways and also state perspective on transit and active transportation. That will be available, like Jay said, via an interactive map. And so please take advantage of that opportunity. All right. And thank you, Jeff, for your contact information there in the chat. All right. Let's see. Has Clint been able to join us?
I don't see him here, Wayne.
Okay, would you mind maybe replying to his email and seeing if he's got any estimated time for joining us?
You bet. I'll reach out to him right now.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
All right. One, an update on the Mid-Valley environmental assessment.
Well, it's great segue. Hearing from from Jay, as my update will be related to that. The Mid-Valley Highway phase 2 and 3 environmental assessment is nearing the end. We're a little bit behind schedule. We were supposed to be done last month. But we ran into a little snag, and that's why we have not been able to schedule a public hearing, a formal public hearing for the final stage of the project. And why we haven't released the final alignment for everyone's use. Apparently there was a 2017 memo, nationwide memo from FHWA that states that in order to finalize the environmental, a major environmental such as this, we need to identify and be on a funded phase of a STIP or of some kind. With that, it kind of put us in a bind because we are on the unfunded phase of that, and we have missed the STIP workshop. So with that, we have been trying to identify ways to still move forward and finalize and get it done. We've worked on a preliminary draft of estimate about breaking down the project in such a way that we could go after funding. Currently, we've broken it into 2 segments from SR 138 where we in to SR 112, and from 112 to SR 36. The segment, I don't have the final numbers yet because we're still just going through verifying numbers and such, but we are looking at that. Segment 1, the north portion, is looking at about $125 million. And segment 2 is double that, about $270 million. Again, we got to refine it. Most of that has to do with right-of-way cost and acquisition. it may be on the high side. We just used across the board number between $5 to $6 per square foot. Versus when we originally did phase one, that was about $1 a square foot. And so that's come up significantly. Anyhow, we are under discussion to perhaps open up corridor preservation grants and things like that. And perhaps that would count towards the funded phase and allow us to move and perhaps start the conversation and get us the champions and whatnot to get us going on perhaps next year's STIP discussion. So.
Thank you, Juan. Yeah, I know for the first, for the northern piece, now constructed of Mid-Valley Highway, that was helpful, I believe, to keeping the environmental alive, was to purchase right away. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that something can be worked out for these phases.
There was a grant, federal grant that ended last month that we applied for because it fit with the this project. We applied for $70 million. It is a smaller community that impacts the criterias were a brand new road that would benefit local smaller communities of less than 60,000 and would mean connecting communities, be a benefit to just emergency access, and it basically fit everything we were trying to do with Mid-Valley Highway. So we hurriedly applied for that, but we don't know where we are. So we're here soon. So we did apply for $70 million. If we should get any part of it, perhaps that would help towards the northern segment to move forward. But in the meantime, I encourage that the local communities work with their, I don't know, legislative champions or whatnot. Once I finalize my estimate, I will release that for your use, and let me know how I can help shepherd this forward.
I wonder if I could just ask a couple of questions. One, this is Mayor Wynn with Tooele City. One is worst case scenario. If there is not funding, what happens to the environmental study?
We believe that if our corridor of preservation is not accepted as a funded, kind of a bridge to a funded phase, then we would have to wait for the next STIP workshop or the session for next year. Again, it doesn't have to be in phase one. It just has to be a phase identified, even if we get on phase 3 or something like that. We just need to get off the unfunded phase.
And so phase 3 would not be built without phase 2. It has to go in order, correct?
Phase 3 of the STIP, of the planning that Jay was speaking of a few minutes ago.
Thanks, Juan. I think the mayor is actually asking whether it's possible to move. I mean, once the environmental work is completed, whether it's possible to move forward with the southern piece before the Mid-Valley or before the
north piece. I don't think it really matters. It's just, it makes more sense to have one continuous road, or as continuous as we can. That's why we identified the north segment. But it really, I don't think it matters if we build a southern portion first versus the middle portion.
So
It's
the
just
reason
that-
that the reason that I even asked that is that I think before we had heard that we couldn't do the southern end until all of it was connected, but the other section has other roads in and out. The southern section does not, existing today. It does not have an access. So people have to, the trucks coming in and out of the industrial depot drive all the way around, and then they use our main street. So Tooele is in a very unique situation right now that we are trying to revitalize our main street. And one of the most important parts of revitalizing our main street is getting the truck traffic off of Main Street. The second is that Tooele City has also just recently identified and rezoned property that our RDA owns at the southern end of where this Mid-Valley Highway is going. We have landed one huge company. We have just secured another one. They have not chosen to go in the business park, but next door, but it's still Tooele City, so we're happy. But what is holding us up is we don't know where this road is going to go. And I can't bring a company in and have them build a $25 million building and then get on a funded list in 2 years and have them say, we're going to tear your building down. So I don't know how to move forward for us with his holdup of where this road is going to go.
Jeff, you've had some experience with regards to something similar like this, right? Where local gov needs to move forward with some development plans, but is held up by just environmental or alignment determination.
Yeah, there have been several opportunities where I think one of the latest ones that I'm aware of is where those plans, Mayor, if you could, if you want to kind of submit your plan or that developer's plan, and then we can compare it with some of the possible alternative alignments and see where that fits, and then that way we can report back to you and say, yeah, that doesn't seem like that would be a problem, or yeah, there's a potential that could happen. So if there's a willingness to kind of share that information with the project team, that way the team can look at that and see if there is any potential issue with any of the alternatives that we've identified. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yes. Only I'm just wondering, are there alternatives when our staff has met with the team? This is where it's going, and there's no alternative. I need to know that there are alternatives.
There are only two alternatives, a build and a no build. And the build alternative recommended is what we discussed previously a few months ago, is about a few hundred feet to the west of the subdivision, is basically just bordering that subdivision. So it's to the far east as we could without triggering a noise wall.
Okay, and like I say, I have seen that one, and it's not really as, although that far east alignment there, having that road go closer to the residential really makes a strip of land very unusable. But for more than anything, it goes right over one of our water wells. We can't have a road built over our water wells. It's just too costly, and I don't have another place to drill a well.
We believed we worked with Tooele City to avoid that, but we could verify that again, but we believe we've avoided that. Anyhow, We
so
met with Tooele City last week and I mean, at this point, trying to create another alignment would push this environmental back all the way at least a year, and we are so close to the end. The only thing that's preventing us from finishing is this memo with the funding phase. And we believe, when you move forward, this is not the be all end all. If we need to revise it again afterwards, we can, so that it's isolated to this area and not have to have the entire alignment.
So how far
resurrected.
can that alignment shift? Once it's adopted, how far can it shift? 100 feet, 100 yards? Or how close? I think you've told us before. I just can't remember. How far can it shift?
It's whether if it's within the same footprint. When we go through and do the environmental, we assume the maximum footprint. When we do active design, it's refined with the cut fill lines, or there are things we can do to narrow up the roads or walls or things like that we can do to narrow up the actual cross section. If the overall movement of that is still within the original footprint, then we really don't need to do anything. But if it swings outside of that footprint, it triggers a reevaluation or a supplemental, depending how bad it is of an impacts to the environment.
We truly would like to start purchasing or gaining access to that corridor and preserving our access. So Tooele City RDA already owns a majority of that property, so we don't have to do property acquisition. The other piece of property is owned by another company who right now is trying to sell it, and that has just happened within the last couple of weeks. But I can't go in and preserve and purchase property for a corridor access if I don't know where the alignment's going to go. And then I can't keep recruiting business when I don't know where the road is going to go. And I'm afraid that we're in just a small window of what we're going to do. And yes, we can redesign it again, but I don't have another $1 million or less, whatever it costs, 250,000 to do another study and realign it again. We're just in a tough spot.
I recommend that we try to move forward with this and get to the funding portion. When we get to the funding portion, that opens up the eligibility for corridor preservation funds that local governments can apply for to preserve the right of way.
Could we get access to that footprint that you've got? Do you have a file that you can share, or is that still something that you can't share? Where the footprint is?
We've shared the KMZ, which gets you very close, but it does not get the CAD files. We cannot release yet until we're allowed by the feds. So,
but it's
when
close.
we share. It's close. We just need to resolve this funding issue. How are we going to get over this memo requirement of funding phase? And we propose, will corridor preservation work? And they're going to check and let us know if that will fit their definition of a funding phase. Or do we have to wait for the STIP being in conversation? Will it being in the conversation be good enough, or would we have to go through the whole STIP process? Or if there's another way, if it comes through the legislative side, even for a portion of it, would that count? There's just so many things on the funding side to consider.
So Mayor, if I understand you correctly, you've got some development opportunities you want to take advantage of, and the concern is that with what we're trying to do, that is making it difficult for you to move forward with some of your city planning efforts. Is that a
Right.
fair assessment?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay.
And I believe, thank you, Mayor, for those comments and questions, and thank you, Juan and Jeff, for the responses. I believe Councilmember Thomas here in person has a comment or question.
Yeah, the question is at the funding, and Quan, thank you very much for that very informative presentation on the environmental side. How do we change the funding path then? I mean, if you've done all this work on the environmental side, and now the next step is we've got to have the funding. How do we get there? I mean, that should be, we've got the funding, you've done an excellent job as always. What do we got to do to move the needle? Is it, we got to go back to the legislature? We got to hire a lobbyist? I mean, now it falls back to how do we get the funding?
Any response to that one?
Part of it, there are multiple venues. We did that, we applied for that federal grant. We have not heard back, so I don't know. I believe that's probably going to be after October to find the results of whether we get it, any part of it. We applied for 70 mil at the time. We didn't have an estimate together, so we just applied for the maximum of now that we've kind of formulated a draft, it comes out to be significantly more. There is the corridor preservation side. It is basically a reimbursement program. You spend it and it shows that you are serious about preserving and moving forward with the project, and you get reimbursed for it, for the funds to just acquire it. There is the legislative side, going after funds there, and then there's the STIP process. And Jeff and Jay, that is a prioritization process statewide, as I believe it is, and it's how do we fund projects going out however many years. So as long as we get onto a funded phase up there, it counts.
Well, I guess my question is, and I appreciate the mayor's comments about it. We did phase one, knowing that phase two and everything is coming down the pipeline. Where did the ball get dropped? I mean, somebody's got to say, for heaven's sakes, we did phase one. We knew phase two was coming. We're excited about the big impact that phase one has made to the county. It's a little frustrating to sit back and say, how do we get the flow so that we do our environmental study? So the next step is, hey, we're going to start construction. To me, that's a little frustrating to say, how do we get to this point and not realize we're getting our asses kicked? That's my question.
And I don't think anybody's dropped any ball. I mean, that we're completing the environmental study is a major step forward, because that's when you're able to program funds for future building. I mean, we've got to complete the environmental process. It's just kind of how the process is set up. And all we're trying to do is just get it into a phased year in the long range plan, so that then we can move forward. Then once that happens, then all these other steps can come into play, and there's a lot more that can be done. So this is a small hurdle that we're trying to overcome really quickly, or not really quickly, but we're working on overcoming. so that we can get that into the long range plan, then we can start moving forward with some of these other steps and getting corridor preservation funds, as Juan mentioned, or the grant or some of these other things. So I don't think a ball's been dropped necessarily, but it has been slowed down a bit. But I think this is something we can work through. Juan, correct me if I'm wrong, but in a timely manner, so that Tooele City can move forward with some of their planning efforts, and then we can and the county can move forward with some of the other things that you have planned.
I really appreciate that explanation, but I sit on the Wasatch Front Regional Growth Council. And when I go in there, I am very, very frustrated that discussion stops at the Salt Lake County line. It doesn't go west. And so when I hear all these wonderful things that are happening at the Wasatch Front Regional Council, and they say, well, it's taking care of the UDOT, and then we come back and now we're here where everybody seems like they're trying to do their best. But it seems like Tooele County, we're left out in the cold because we're not urban and we're rural, but we're between, we're a tweenie. So somewhere we're losing out. And I think this is a good example where we've done the environment. Juan's done a great job. UDOT's done a good job, but we're getting left out on the Wasatch Front. And it's dang frustrating to say that we've done all the legwork, we've done the timeline, and now we get to this point, we got to say, oh, for heaven's sakes, we got to wait. To me, that's frustrating because Mid-Valley Highway Phase 1 has made a big, big difference. Well, the city is they're held up, they're impacted, and for some reason we can't get the proper funding or get on that list. It's dang frustrating. So thanks for the good work you guys do. I appreciate it, everything you've done for the county. But we need to somehow build that bridge and get on this priority list. So thank you very much.
And thank you for feeling comfortable enough to express your frustration. I think we want to get things moving forward as much as you do. We really do.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Any last comments or questions on this item? All right. Yes, thank you for speaking up and for everyone sharing their thoughts. Let's see. Maybe, and I don't. While Becky's speaking, maybe Clint and Brittany can coordinate just to make sure we're ready for Clint to share his screen when Becky's done, or for somebody to share Clint's or Brittany to share Clint's presentation when Becky's.
Okay, yeah.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So I'm super excited to be able to finally do some work out in Tooele County. I have a big family history that comes from Tooele County, and I've been a UDOT project manager for about 5 years and haven't had a project in Tooele County except out at milepost 10 to 20 on I-80. So I'm super excited to be working out in Tooele. So I'm happy. I don't know if you guys are aware or not aware, so I'll just say it, but there's 2 projects coming on SR 36. This first one on SR 36 is going to start at Sunset Lane and go to Stansbury Parkway. And we're going to be adding a 3rd lane in the southbound direction. So this first project is focused on southbound only. Again, adding a 3rd lane. Currently, you kind of get off I-80 and it has the 3 lanes and then it drops there at Sunset. So this will be continuing that 3rd lane down to Stansbury Parkway. So I just made a selection earlier today for a design firm. So we will be starting immediately on getting survey and design going on that. Our intention, we think there's minimal right-of-way impacts, maybe a little bit at the intersections, but our intention is to be able to start construction on that next summer. So the summer of 2024. So that's our plan for that. Then the second project that will be coming, but is more complicated because it's larger, is going to be the northbound direction. And that's going to start at the southern limit. So there by Stansbury Parkway, add a third lane going up towards I-80. Today on I-80 on that eastbound on-ramp, there's kind of the 2 lanes that drop down to 1. We're going to keep that 2 lanes and have what we call an auxiliary lane that will continue on to the SR 201 exit. So the intention and hope for that one, we have harder, longer environmental on that, more design. We'll have right-of-way impacts likely towards the I-80 area with some of those businesses. Will be a 2025, so 2 years out for construction on that.
Do you have a drawing of that, a map that you could show that?
You know what? I wish I did, but I don't. I have like a conceptual, and it only is the Sunset to Stansbury Parkway part. From what I understand, there's been numerous planning studies, concept ideas, all sorts of stuff out there. But maybe I can plan for this next meeting to have some sort of concept drawing to be able to show you guys. Just so you kind of know what's coming. We'll definitely have outreach to be letting everyone know. As I mentioned previously, I'm just getting someone hired right now so that I can start efforts on this. But the UDOT corridor right-of-way wise is about 200 feet. So this should, for the most part, fit within that. Like I say, there might be some spots at intersections with right turn lanes and stuff that we have tiny corner clips, but we're hoping it can mostly be within the UDOT right-of-way. That will facilitate getting this designed and out to construction as quick as possible when we have minimal right-of-way we need to acquire. Any other questions?
Thank you, Becky. That's great information. And just for the record, that programming or that northbound SR 36 piece and the auxiliary lane on eastbound I-80 were previously anticipated to not start construction until 2028. But just this spring, that construction, thanks to the some legislative, significant legislative funding across the state, allowed a few projects to be accelerated in timeline. And this is one of the projects that they are able to accelerate by a few years. So, yeah,
these projects were moved up 3 years from what I understand from the legislature. So exactly as you just explained. So I feel a teeny bit behind the game to try and get this out for next summer. So I'm pushing real hard to get the southbound, and then we'll have northbound the following year, hopefully. Fingers crossed.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, Clint. This is Clint Campbell with the Utah Transit Authority, and he's got some information to share on the transit element for consideration by this group for the Tooele Valley Long Range Transportation Plan.
Awesome. Does anyone have the slideshow? I didn't bring it via computer. I thought I emailed it to Rosie, so I was hoping it could be displayed.
You're good.
Okay.
Does that work for you, Rosie?
Yes. Just let me know when do you need me to move on to it, the next slide.
Perfect. So yeah, as was mentioned, my name is Clint Campbell, Long Range Strategic Planning with UTA. Excited to be out here in Tooele. There's a lot of great things happening out here, and we're happy to be a part of it. So thank you for inviting us and continuing your support. So just this is our update. We broke this into 3 kind of areas. We have the near term, the midterm, and the long-term views of what's going to be happening transit-wise out here. Obviously, these are kind of our viewpoints on it. We would love to have any feedback. I mean, these are ever growing. We'd love to have conversations with our communities and kind of see how we can better serve you. So starting with the near term, continue developing cost-effective transportation for non-commuters and commuters alike. Making sure that people can get around your city, out of your city are definitely priorities. Just finding the best way to do that. Discuss transit needs regularly. I don't feel like we come out here enough. I would love to talk more with you all, so feel free. If you have any questions or anything, feel free to loop us in. I am actively working with Jared on some of the active transportation stuff. It really is exciting to see the growth out here. Also short term is the rollout of the next phase of the on-demand service. I don't know how many of you are familiar with on-demand, but it's been successful out here. And I have some metrics to show you later on in the presentation, which are really, really cool to look at. Rosie, next slide, please. So intermediate term, what we're looking to do is pursue strategies to increase ridership. That's the big thing. We're trying to grow service in all of our communities now. So whether it starts with on-demand, moves to fixed route, moves to BRT, moves to whatever, it's just a matter of growing it, making sure that we have that ridership as a base to sustain service as we're growing. We're using data to gather short-term, improve student transit usage. You guys actually have a lot of new universities out here and different things, job centers, making sure people can get to and from their house to these destinations is definitely becoming more and more important, and we would love to be there to help do that. Also improve pedestrian cycling access to transit. Thank you once again for inviting us to be on your active transportation study. So we're really looking forward to that. That's the big thing, is making sure people can walk and bike to transit. Over 80% of people that access transit do so by walking or biking. So making sure that we have a good AT infrastructure overlaying a transit is top priority. Rosie, next slide, please. So the long term, and this is where it's always interesting. People are like, oh yeah, like it sucks to have to wait for it, or we want this stuff sooner. Or, you know, everyone has different views of what things should look like. So yeah, we'd love to have more conversations. We would like to increase peak and off-peak service, intra valley. So currently right now, we are still experiencing a driver shortage. So it is difficult for UTA to expand our operations as far as fixed route goes, but it's something that if the ridership is there, the destinations are there, we do like to look at it. Also, we would like to make sure that development doesn't interfere with any of the possibility of future transit. So that's something, as you are developing your city, you know, looking at expanding roadways, different things like that, keep transit and how that could possibly be affected in your mind. It's just one of those things we'd hate to be totally landlocked to where you can't run whatever it may be in the future just due to land ownership or whatnot. Also, pursue ideas of all-day regional express between Tooele and SLC versus from the UT 201. So that's something, making sure people, we know there is a big commuter demand, making sure people can get to and from Salt Lake to Tooele is definitely beneficial for everyone. And those are kind of the big things. Next slide, please. Actually, does anyone have any questions on any of this so far? Okay, so going to the next slides. This is what the on-demand electrification looks like. So pretty cool. We're gonna end up pretty much switching all of Tooele to an electric fleet of on-demand vehicles. So there will be about 10 Ford Transit vans, level 2 charging at our UTA facilities, level 2 and 3 charging at the county facilities. And we're actually looking to begin testing on this. It says spring 2023, and that is indeed the case. We're hoping to have testing continuing and then implementation towards the fall. So this will be the first service area that actually is all electric. So we're looking forward to that. I think that'll be a really cool thing and a great case study to show, you know, the progressive nature of Tooele Valley in this way. Going forward. Perfect. So these numbers are actually really small, it looks like, but if you guys can all see them. So you can see when on-demand rolled out in August 2022, we had ridership of about 1,200 people, which honestly isn't terrible for the first month of service on anything, especially when no one knows what it is. Is everyone familiar with on-demand or any explanations? Okay, so on-demand pretty much is a service. It's pretty much Uber or van pool, but for $2.50. So instead of having to have a fixed route that may or may not have high ridership, this will actually take you curb to curb. So you're able to go, from the grocery store or your house to the grocery store for $2.50. It's also great as far as if you need a first and last mile connection or really anything to kind of get around without having to have a costly bus service that just runs on a fixed route. So we've noticed in these communities where flexibility is key and maybe ridership is a little bit more spread out, this has actually been really successful. And as you can see, 1,200 people on the first in August 2022, all the way up to about 4,200 rides in May 2023. So there is growth every year, well, every month. So it's nice to see it's beginning to catch on more and more. And yeah, we love to see that this is being successful out here. So if you haven't used it, I recommend you try the service. If you have, continue using it because it's great. We also use this data to see where hotspots are that people are visiting. So it's something that in the future we can use to better serve your community as far as, hey, it looks like there are a ton of people using on-demand to get from this neighborhood to this university or this work center. And then that's where we can kind of get data that's really easy to justify, fixed route, whatever it may be. So yeah, we're excited about this.
Any hotspots in Tooele?
So unfortunately, that's actually funny you say that. I don't. Yeah, I should have pulled that. And I actually just figured out how to use this Power BI software. And I didn't even think to ask that, but I will email those to you because I do think, yeah, no, I would love to. So I'll go back to the data team and collect that and send it out because it really is kind of cool to watch. We pretty much create these heat maps and yeah, you can kind of see where the most visited areas are. And it's funny because most of the time they're related to fixed transit, like you'll take on demand to light rail or to, front runner. And out here, it'd be even more interesting, I feel like, because you don't have those like transit destinations as much as, the big hotspots, whether it be work centers or job centers. So yeah, it'd be cool. Yeah, any questions, comments, concerns?
The electrical charging stations lead out here as well.
So I believe they are. I believe the ones at least on the UTA sites are. I can't speak to the county ones, but I can talk to the Innovation Development Group and give you a definitive answer. Well, thank you guys. That was easy. Yeah, hopefully you guys are all excited about it. And realistically, like I mentioned, love to see growth out here. So keep it up. You're doing a great job.
Good job. Those numbers are way impressive.
Yeah,
So
no,
that's
we
awesome.
Totally agree. We're very excited about it.
Great, thank you, Clint. And I'll just briefly talk on agenda item 5. So I've received a lot of solid and useful input in shaping the long-range transportation plan for Tooele Valley, not only for transit, but also for active transportation and highway. I'm working on compiling that input and coordinating with UDOT and UTA. And we'll be bringing back a pretty solid draft in September on the long-range plan for Tooele Valley that the RPO will have the opportunity to approve one of these coming months. It's an important note about the plan that's prepared by the RPO. It's needs-based. There's not a financial constraint element to it, or there's not anticipated revenue assigned to planned projects, but nonetheless, it's a very helpful tool in identifying the needs and preparing to take the next steps on several projects throughout the valley. So with that, does anybody have any items of other business? Are we missing anything in the chat, Rosie?
No, it's all clear.
All right, thank you. And let's see, I've got two or three very short other business items, but first I want to give a little bit of time to Kip Billings from Wasatch Front Regional Council to let you know where things are at with the Safe Streets, with the development of a region-wide Tooele County, Morgan County, Southern Box Elder, Davis, Weber, and Salt Lake counties, where things are at in beginning to develop a safety action plan for the entire region of the Wasatch Front Regional Council Association of Governments.
Okay, so the Safe Streets for All, abbreviated SS4A, you might see that, is a new program, part of the Investment in Infrastructure and Jobs Act, or that's one of the names of the legislation. So they established some funds that are available from federal highways directly to local governments. So this is not a state or a UDOT program, but to qualify for funds to build some safety related projects for your local communities, the first step was to have the regional safety action plan that Wayne was referring to. So we went out to bid and have identified a consultant to prepare that study. We're in the process of finalizing the documents, getting signatures and getting the contract in place. Jared has been participating in that process. We expect the study will take a year. So about this time, well, actually, I think the date is March or April, there will be some draft materials available. So local governments will be able to start identifying projects, because there's a really quick turnaround. We're anticipating July of 24 is when grant requests for projects will be due. So we're trying to get at least draft materials available as soon as possible. We do want to have the project completed, or the study completed, by June of next year, June or July of next year. So that's where we're at right now. We're anticipating getting started any week now.
Thanks, Kip. Any questions for Kip? So just a little more detail there. Rochelle Custer with Tooele County has also been participating in that effort. And so we'll continue to keep you involved, and there will be opportunities for elected official and staff, local government staff to participate at a few points over the next year in the development of this study or this safety action plan.
Yeah, and one other point I neglected to make about the safety action plan is the consultant has proposed, rather than do one big plan for the whole region, it will be one document, but they are going to look at 11 different geographic focus areas, and Tooele County is one of those areas. So within that document, there'll be some meetings and analysis of the safety data to focus on what Tooele County and Tooele City needs, which could be totally different than what Salt Lake City or Ogden or Sandy, or what their needs are. So I think that's a interesting and helpful detail of the way they're approaching this study.
Great, thanks, Kip. Jared?
Kip, I just want to say I appreciate that too, because you know there's just big differences between project in Salt Lake County and how many people that serves versus a project in Tooele County and how many people that serves. If you lump them all together, it looks like we shouldn't fund anything in Tooele County because it just serves less people per you know, per dollar, right? But so I think we just really appreciate the focus areas and breaking it out like that, and that's a great approach. So thanks for letting us be involved in that, and we look forward to it.
I'm on my soapbox about that county line. Somehow we've got to being able to bring these active lifestyle trails around the mountain. I go to these Meeting the Growth meetings and I hear all these active planning training meetings. I hear about these wonderful gosh dang trails. I don't hear how they connect with Tooele County. But yet we got talk about Harriman. They said, well, we'll bring it around here. We'll go up over the mountain. We'll go through Middle Canyon. We go around by the lake. We come out to the salt air and come around that way. Somehow we've got to be able to connect the counties. So when we talk about these safety plans and what we're doing, let's try to make them connect. And hopefully we will do that, because with our new leadership here with the county Deseret Peak, with Jared and Tooele City and the parks and trails, there's great things happening with those active lifestyles, trails and biking. We want to make sure we're a part of that. So we say, well, that's our region, that's our part. Great, we want the focus. But let's work at connecting to make these things. We can ride my bike to the next place, or Salt Lake County can come out this way too. So, but again, I don't want to sound like I'm down on your efforts to Wayne, that we really appreciate them. So anyhow, but thank you. So if we can do that.
Thanks, Councilman Thomas. Appreciate that. Let's see, just 2 or 3 quick other items. You may be aware there's opportunity. Jay mentioned this briefly. There's opportunity periodically for local governments to nominate projects for the TIF active funding and the TTIF first mile, last mile. That's Transportation Investment Fund for active transportation, and Transit Transportation Investment Fund for first mile, last mile connections. A nomination window is opening June 26th. Please watch your emails for notice from WFRC in the next few weeks, or if you want to jump ahead of that, we'll be sending out information. But if you want to jump ahead of that, if you Google UDOT TIF prioritization process, you can probably find more information as well. But we will be sending out an email, and that nomination window will be open for, I believe, about 60 days. So we'll be sending more information out toward the front end, not toward the back end of that 60 days. If you haven't already seen it, there's a survey, online survey available for the Guiding Our Growth effort. There were a couple of, at least one workshop out here last year, maybe a couple of workshops. But there's, if you want to spread the word on encouraging your residents to give input on Guiding Our Growth. It's a statewide conversation on preferences among the public for how Utah can maintain its quality of life over the next decades. And finally, last thing I wanted to mention, there's a notice of funding opportunity that'll probably come out this summer for the multimodal project discretionary grant program, which includes the rural surface transportation program. So I'm sure you're aware there's a lot of new federal discretionary or competitive grant programs out there. This one is specifically for rural areas. And once the NOFO is released, I'll be sending an email, but just be aware, they are anticipating that there will be a notice of funding opportunity released this summer on that. Rural Surface Transportation Program, so RSTP. And it's also, I'll be sending it out when it comes out. It's not, the notice of funding opportunity has not been released yet. But there will be a notice of funding opportunity that we will send out. And not to say that applying for these federal discretionary grants is an easy process, because it's not. But there are resources through the Governor's Office of Planning and Budget. I believe they've got a staff person dedicated to helping put together grant applications. And lastly, next meeting is scheduled here Monday, September 11th at 1:30. And with that, we will stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for your participation, both online and in person.